So I'm really, really proud to introduce Bukky Yusuf today. So I've known Bukky for quite a while. I actually don't know how long I know her for, but I first met her when she was a science consultant in because we worked for the same local authority, and I wanted to do science differently. And Bukky was the person sent along to try and fight through and understand my madness. And we did some quite good stuff together. It wasn't traditional in any way, but it was our version of science. And Bukky was amazing and struck me as being amazing from our very, very first conversation. So Bukky still works as a science teacher sometimes, but she's also a science and ed tech leader. She's a regional leader for Women Ed London. She's active as part of BayMed, and she also finds time to coach. And every single person who's been coached by Bukky says, if you want to coach, go to Bukky. And that is in itself all we need to know about how good she is. So thank you very, very much for being here today, Bukky.
Thank you, Alison, for that wonderful, warm introduction. I'm going to just quickly share my screen. So what I'm going to be talking about very briefly for about 5 minutes is something that is really dear to me, actually. It's about identifying your core values. There's an article that I'm going to share, a link that if you want to get more information about my own journey with regard to this, you can do. But our core values, obviously, it links to the heart of who we are and what we actually do. If you think about the definition of core value, this is what you actually see. It's a principle that guides our thinking and behaviors. And I use that definition to give the analogy like it's a stick of rock. No matter which part you actually cut through, there should be continuity because it links to who you actually are. And I'm sure, like me, you've probably been on so many different leadership courses or development courses where partway through the day, you're given an activity. What are your core values? What do you think? And you're given a short amount of time to actually write down the different words that you gravitate towards. And these are some of the words I've actually noted down, and I'm sure you've done the same as well. But there was one particular day when my friend, Susan Kukungu, assistant head teacher, we were talking about the next steps of my own leadership journey. And it was an unusual time because I had come towards the end of working in a school that we both worked in, but I hadn't actually yet secured my next role. So I called that my phase of liminal leadership, which is another discussion for another time. And she asked me a particular question: what are your core values? And she said it again: what are your core values? Because I started to talk about the core values of the school. And when she asked me that question again, this was my response: I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. And I felt a bit stupid, actually, because I thought, God, maybe this is the reason why I haven't actually secured my next leadership role, because I wasn't clear. And it took me 8 months to actually think through and explore what my particular values are. Now, you may be thinking, okay, Bukky, well, okay, we hear you. Is it really important? It is. Because if you work in an organization, particularly if you are a leader that doesn't align with your core values, it actually has an impact upon your well-being. You may feel bored or unfulfilled, or just thinking, God, this is not really worth it, or words like life's too short. And there's some research by Biaxis and McKee, which actually explains the impact of this. And that made me realize it's so important for us to actually spend time, however long it takes, to find out what resonates with us, what's our core that will be demonstrated through everything that we actually do. And I'm going to share some tips, just a few tips. There are lots. If you Google, like how to identify your core, some share a list of 5 top things, some share a list of 35 top things. There are lots of different things. I'm just going to give you a small selection and sample just to get your thinking going. So the first one, which we've all done, and I did this, is just to look up a list of words. But there are so many. There are so many, and it can feel overwhelming. And you may choose about 10, and you may be advised to limit it down to 5, and you're really struggling. So this particular approach may work, but what I suggest is this particular tool. So you get posed 12 key questions to help you brainstorm. For example, who has inspired you in your life? Traits of people that you admire, leaders particularly, that you want to cultivate. Your greatest accomplishments. Lots of challenging questions that when you think through them, there are no easy answers. And again, it takes time to actually explore this. But this I found to be a really useful tool to help you think, explore, and also maybe look into some of the leadership values you've actually seen that perhaps you gravitate towards and you may aspire towards. I also think it's really important actually just to step back and think of those leaders that have really made a difference. I can think, if I think back from my career, and it even links back to the time when Alison mentioned about the fact that we were both working in different roles, the same local authority, there were some leaders that I can still think of now who were admirable. I really admired them. So who are those leaders? It may be a short list of maybe 3 to 5 different leaders. What was it specifically that you admired about them? Note this down, and it actually may lead to some of the values that strongly resonate with you. We can flip it on its head and think, okay, what are the things that some leaders do that really irritate you and bugs the heck out of you? So it could be that you come across some leaders who aren't quite truthful about things they actually say. They may say one thing in front of you or a group of people and do something completely different. Maybe that links to your sense of authenticity, your value, and that's actually been triggered and why it actually resonates. It actually has such a strong reaction against that. So think of it on its head. Now, any presentation I do, I always talk about getting a coach or a mentor. I am a qualified coach, as Alison actually alluded to, and I do coach a number of women through BAME Ed as well as Women Ed, so what are some of the freelance things that I actually do. But spending time to get someone to help you explore your values is worthwhile time. I've actually spent I'm currently spending time with someone, and it's taken them a while, but they're actually enjoying the journey and the process because it's helping them to discover themselves as a leader as they explore their values and making sure that they purposefully demonstrate this in everything that they say and do. Now, at this point, you may be asking yourself, well, Bukky, did you find out what your values are? And I did. Determination, I always try and find a way to power through things in ways that are not harmful to my well-being now. Resilience, integrity, I think integrity is extremely important as a leader because as far as we possibly can, we must make sure that whatever we say is radiated through what we actually do. Valor links to my pledge to be 10% brave as Women Ed, and the fact that we need to sometimes step out of our comfort zone to do the right thing and move things through. And as you can tell by the style of my presentation, enthusiasm, the joie de vivre. It's so important to me, and I try to make sure that it's resonated in everything I do. And if you notice, that spells the acronym DRIVE. Very easy for me to remember. So, very short, a short flavour. And what I'll actually do is in the chat, I'll share a link to the feature, the article that I wrote for Leadership Matters. I'm also an ambassador to Leadership Matters, where I try to capture some of my thinking and reflections during the 8 months that helped me to identify my core values. Thank you very much.